Well, good afternoon, everybody. And let me just start by saying what a privilege it is to be here with you today. I was listening to Levi and Mitch, and I just want you to know how grateful I am for the opportunity that you've all given me to serve this community that I love. Over the years, I've spoken with you all about homelessness in our community. Addressing this issue has been one of my top priorities as your commissioner. And although we still have a ways to go to dig out of the hole that Measure 110 and the legalization of drugs put us in, I'm confident we can get there. But in order to get there, we have to be real about the dangers of unregulated homeless camping in our community and the criminal activity that often takes place in these camps. It's important that we as a community come to the consensus that unregulated homeless camping is bad. That doesn't mean that all the people in these camps are bad. People go to these camps for many different reasons. But the policy of allowing unregulated homeless camping is a bad public policy. It's bad for the people living in the camps, and it's bad for our community. And we need to be convicted about this. Wallace Marine Park is not in Marion County. It's right across the bridge there in Polk County. But for many years, there's been a large unregulated homeless camp there. Many people come across from that camp into Salem every day. Late last year, I heard there was some criminal activity going on, and so I asked our sheriff if he could have somebody in his office look into it and do some research. And the report that I received was terrible. And before I begin to tell you about it, some of what I'm going to share is probably not appropriate for young children. So if you're at home watching this, please be advised of that. The sheriff's office was able to identify 90 individuals who were living in Wallace Marine Park. 40% of them had outstanding warrants for their arrest. 11 were sex offenders. Of those, nearly half were not compliant with their status. 49 of the 90 individuals, over 50%, had cautions on their criminal histories, which means they'd faced criminal charges that could pose a threat to law enforcement. Things like unlawful use of a weapon or a felon in possession of a firearm. 33 of these individuals had cautions from other states, and 17 of them had out-of-state drug charges. The sheriff's office found that drug use and trafficking was a central driving force in the park. A witness testified in the report that drugs are used to control and manipulate others. The witness talked about how on more than one occasion, receiving a hot shot, which is a syringe of dope that's been intentionally laced with another product such as fentanyl, rat poison, or even coagulant. This was used as payback for stealing, cheating with someone else, or not following orders. And if a person were to file a report with the police, according to this witness, they would be labeled a rat and assaulted or expelled from the park. According to the report, this witness observed a person labeled a rat, assaulted, beat up. All the supplies were stolen from them. They were then stripped naked and told to never come back. And sexual assaults are even more common than physical assaults in the homeless camp at Wallace Marine Park. According to the report, predators prey on women and the newly homeless, the mentally ill, the elderly, young teens, runaways, transit mall youth. As young as 13 have made their way to the camp and have been targeted immediately. Victims are lured with the offer of drugs and kept high so that they will comply. They're held captive at the camp and often sexually assaulted over multiple days. The report also details how screaming is normalized and therefore ignored. One witness testified that she was lured into the camp with the offer of drugs and then held in the camp for multiple days by a man who raped her multiple times before she was able to escape. Many people in the park refuse medical treatment, which results in a high incidence of sexually transmitted diseases. In February of 2025, there was a report of a baby born in the camp at Wallace Marine Park. After a search, officers were able to locate the baby and attempted to have the parents transported to the hospital, but they both refused. Officers alerted DHS and they were able to get a seizure warrant for the child. The mother and the child hid from DHS personnel for a month before they were able to be located. When DHS finally got the child to the hospital, the baby's body temperature was 91 degrees, and the child weighed only 7.5 pounds at a month old. The baby was severely dehydrated and hypoglycemic. Fortunately, the child survived, but we know of at least 4 babies born in Wallace Marine Park. After I received this report in December, I brought it to the attention of our local Public Safety Coordinating Council, of which I'm the chair. And to their credit, both Salem Police Chief Trevor Womack and Salem Mayor Julie Hoy sprang into action. Chief Womack circulated a memo where he called for the end of unregulated homeless camping in Wallace Marine Park, and the Salem homeless teams have been working on making that park safe for children and families again. However, now new large unregulated homeless camps have sprung up on ODOT right-of-way. This is unacceptable. We need the state to join us in ending unregulated camping in our community. Now that the city of Salem and Marion County are on the same page, we need the state of Oregon to step up as well. Currently, ODOT has a 10-day posted notice rule, which means that once ODOT posts notice at an unregulated camp, the folks there have 10 days to leave. But ODOT does not have adequate staff to do this in a timely manner, and it can take them more than 30 days to post a notice at a camp. Often these camps continue to grow to a large size over many months before ODOT can get around to posting a notice. And this actually makes it more difficult and expensive to clear the site, which leads to more delays. The notice period should be no longer than 48 or 72 hours as it is in Salem, and every state, city, and county law enforcement officer should have notices in their cars that they can hand to any unregulated camp of a significant size, regardless of the jurisdiction. When these notices are posted by the state, the Marion County outreach teams from the Sheriff's Office and Health Department that you heard about go to these camps and connect with folks, try to enroll them in services, and connect them to resources. But unfortunately, despite their success, just as often they're turned down. The reality is, as you've heard, we've spent millions of dollars, both public and private dollars, on increasing number of shelter beds and treatment-oriented housing since I've been a commissioner. At CCS, UGM, the Samanka House, the Homeless Navigation Center, Center for Hope and Safety, Soaring Heights, various other nonprofits in our community have all added beds. And I'm really proud of these organizations. They're doing incredible work, and they're really making a difference. However, it's also true that many of these beds are empty on any given night. And sometimes people in unregulated camps refuse to enter shelter. If the reason that a person refuses to enter shelter is because of their addiction, then it's important for us to say that we will help you recover as many times as it takes from your addiction. But we won't enable it because these drugs are not good for you. They don't build you up, and they don't reflect the dignity that you deserve. Just in Marion County alone, over 400 people have died of drug overdoses since 2021 when Measure 110 passed. 400 people. This is horrible, but it's not inevitable. And it leads me to the second thing that we need to unite around as a community, that illegal drug use is bad. This doesn't mean that the people who struggle with addiction are bad people. Some of the best people I know are recovering addicts. We hire them at Marion County, and I would trust them with my kids. People fall into addiction for many reasons. And many of the people who are addicts and are in recovery have overcome unbelievable challenges in their lives. But drug addiction and drug trafficking is common in unregulated homeless camps, and it's often the reason that people in these camps refuse services. Until we as a community can come to a consensus that both unregulated homeless camping is bad and illegal drug use is bad, we will not be able to get our arms around this homeless problem in our community. And sometimes folks will say to me, if we don't allow these camps, then where will these people go? And I think you heard a lot about it, where the alternatives are from Commissioner Bethel. And in particular, our place that she talked about. This idea that there's a place where moms and dads together can go through treatment and don't have to be separated from their children is really the dream that I have, the vision that I have, the vision that we have for what it should look like here in Marion County. It's been successful in her place, it's been successful in his place. And as Commissioner Bethel mentioned, just 2 weeks ago, a couple brought a baby home to be with them. Instead of having to hide from DHS, instead of being worried that the state was going to come take their child, they got to keep that child. They got to stay in recovery. That child didn't have to be in danger, and they didn't have to be scared. That's the alternative. You know, the other day I was talking to a friend, and he said, I want Salem to be the place that everybody wants to come to. I want it to be the place where the best musicians want to come perform here, and the best artists. I want it to be a place with the best restaurants. I love this attitude. This is exactly the right attitude. For too long, I feel like we've been told that the failures we're experiencing in our community are the best that anybody can do, and that we should just get used to it. That it's normal to have failing institutions like the State Hospital or the Oregon Youth Authority or the Oregon Department of Education. You'll hear people say, well, homelessness will always be with us. But none of this is true. None of it is true. And we have to quit accepting a culture of mediocrity in the state of Oregon. So next time you hear somebody say to you, nothing's going to change, or it's going to take a long time, or there's not much we can do, don't believe them. Don't believe them. Our motto in Marion County is expect excellence. We need to send this culture to the rest of the state. The time for failure in Oregon must end. The time for achievement is now, and Marion County is ground zero for this revitalization. And speaking of achievement, I want to talk to you a little bit about education. Last year I told you how there's a crisis in our schools, how adjusted for demographics, Oregon students rank dead last in the country in fourth grade reading and math. And despite the fact that spending on education has doubled over the last 10 years, our kids' performances on basic arithmetic and literacy tests have plummeted during the same time period. But now I want to tell you about a solution to this problem. In the budget reconciliation bill that Congress passed last year, a large amount of new federal funding was allocated to support K-12 education through a new tax credit. This tax credit is for donations to nonprofits that grant scholarships to kids for education. However, these scholarship granting organizations can only exist in a state if the state opts into this federal program. If Oregon does not opt into this federal program, Oregon kids will not get this money. It's that simple. This means that Oregon taxpayers would be funding scholarships for kids in other states, not kids in Oregon. And this will happen. This is a dollar for dollar tax credit. It's one of the most valuable tax credits that exists in the federal tax code. There's about 2.7 million taxpayers in the state of Oregon. If only 10% of these taxpayers use this credit, that's 1 out of every 10 people, that will mean nearly $500 million is going out of state from Oregon taxpayers to pay for education for kids in other states starting in 2027. This is why both Democrat and Republican governors have said that they will opt into this program. Democrat Governor Jared Polis in Colorado said, quote, "I would be crazy to not opt in. If Colorado doesn't participate, our federal tax dollars will simply flow to other states." That's exactly right. However, Governor Tina Kotek here in Oregon has said she does not intend to opt into this program and allow these scholarship granting nonprofits to operate in Oregon. If our governor doesn't join this program, Oregonians will be funding educational opportunities for kids in other states at a time when Oregon ranks dead last on fourth grade reading and math. That's unconscionable. And this is personal to me because when I was 12, I took a standardized test in school, and let's just say I didn't exactly ace the exam. And in particular, my math scores weren't great. Fortunately, my dad was interested in the outcome of that test, and so he signed me up for a math tutoring program after school. After doing an extra 100 math problems a day on top of my homework for several years, my math scores magically went up. Actually, it wasn't magic. It's the predictable result of a parent who cares and had the resources to sign his kid up for tutoring. With scholarship organizations in Oregon, no child would have to have their future limited due to a lack of resources. These funds can be used for tutoring, public school, private school, homeschooling, whatever a kid needs to learn. Now, I know that there might be some people who would be worried if we take this funding, it could hurt funding for our local public schools. We have wonderful public schools here in Marion County, so the thought could be if kids use this money to move away from public education, won't that put our public schools into financial crisis? The answer is no, and here's why. First, this is new federal money. It does not affect state funding for K-12 education. This is an opportunity to access additional federal dollars for our kids that we never had before. There's no reason this has to decrease state funding for schools, and I would not support that. Second, local public schools are beloved in Marion County. Kids who are going to a public school they're happy with can use this scholarship money to augment their education. They don't have to leave their school. They can use the money to make themselves better students and to personalize their educational experience. Math tutoring, reading help, financial literacy, a second language, music or dance lessons will become possible for thousands of kids in Marion County and the state of Oregon, regardless of their family's income. Teachers will be able to work with their students to use this money to multiply what they can do. This will be incredibly empowering to our frontline educators who are sick of seeing their kids fail in class with no way to help them. Community cornerstone schools like St. Paul, St. Mary's, Kennedy, Sublimity, Staten, Cascade, McNary, South, just to name a few of them, are vitally important to our community. This federal tax credit program has the possibility of turbocharging these schools, not harm them. We need to return more control to our schools and to tailor our educational offerings to the needs of our students and our communities. So I hope you'll join me in asking Governor Kotek to change her mind and opt into this federal program. At a time when students are performing the way they are in fourth grade reading and math, this is not the time to send hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding to help students in other states instead of helping our kids here in Oregon. Like my colleagues, I also want you to know how proud I am of the infrastructure investments we've been making on behalf of our communities the past several years that Commissioner Cameron talked about. The money that we received from the state and federal government was one-time money, and we treated it that way. Our budget this year is down over $100 million from last year because we're spending down the money that we set aside for capital projects. That means that we didn't take one-time money and create unsustainable programs with it. Instead, we took our job seriously in ensuring that we competently invested over $200 million in new roads, water systems, sewer systems, radio systems, parks, and facilities that will benefit our community for generations. And you'll probably laugh at this, but I'm also proud of our lawyers at Marion County. I'm proud of the lawsuits that we filed against the state to protect the safety of our community. I'm proud that we continue to hold the state accountable for its failures, like when it releases violent criminals into our community from the state hospital, or fails to adequately supervise the juveniles at McLaren. And finally, I'm proud of our Marion County District Attorney, Paige Clarkson, who has opened not one, but 2 grand jury investigations into failing state agencies. First, the Oregon Youth Authority, and now the state hospital. DA Clarkson served our community through some very difficult times, protecting us during riots, COVID, Measure 110 and the legalization of drugs, the defense attorney crisis, that time when Kate Brown granted clemency to hundreds of violent criminals and released them back into our community. At a time when public safety officials were under fire, Paige stood up and did what was right. She advocated for school resource officers, and she was willing to be the face of district attorneys across Oregon and go to that marble nut house down the road and push back against the bad legislation that was harming the people that we serve. When DAs in other metro areas were abandoning their posts, Paige was a steady hand at the tiller, even when it was unpopular with the Portland crowd. She's retiring at the end of this year, and I just want you all to know how lucky we were to have her serve us over the last 20 years. And our plan was to give her an award today, but she had the bad luck of becoming sick. So if you would please join me, would you join me in showing our appreciation to DA Clarkson? I know she's watching this at home. Paige, I know you're watching, and I hope you could see how much we all appreciate what you've done for us over the last 2 decades. Thank you. In the latest census data, Marion County was one of only 2 counties west of the Cascades that had more births than deaths, and we're one of the 3 fastest growing counties in the state of Oregon over the last 5 years. As messed up as our state's been over the last 5 years, that's how good Marion County has been. This is still a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to start or grow a business. It's a great place for your kids to grow up. So thank you for each of you. Thank you for that, everything that you all do to continue to make this county strong. I wouldn't want to be a commissioner anywhere else in the world. So thanks again, and God bless.